You think Christmas is good?
No.
Why Christmas is not good?
Because you chop down trees and trees have to grow.
That's a good reason right there, baby. That's a good one there.
Soup, blankets, chips, water, and apples.
How you doing today?
Other stuff in there.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
it.
Take care.
Welcome back, Facebook and YouTube. Today we're going to talk about a very, very beloved holiday. We're going to be talking about not only Christmas, but what I'm going to be telling you, you can tie this into Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all of those things as well. And the reason I say that is because it's not just Christmas season, it's holiday season. And the reason they call it holiday season is because you must understand something called a three-headed dragon, as many of us call it. And that three-headed dragon is Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. These are the major three dragons that run the world and are the main three that's responsible for massive genocide through war. Make a long story short, when you look at this Christian country, you will see that those three are prevalent on this land and are the most dominant three here in the three religions that we allow practice on American soil. When you ride around the country, you will see many churches for Christians, many mosques for Muslims, and you will see the Jewish influence all over many Jewish communities and their temples and everything. So those are your big three. I'm not going to deal with those religions. What I want to go into today is Christmas, because everyone can relate to Christmas. I remember being a child and the feeling that you have around holiday time, especially Christmas Eve. Our mama would let us open one toy on Christmas Eve and the rest on Christmas. I can't explain that feeling. It's a great feeling. But this tradition of Christmas is so far from the truth. Many people that partake in Christmas don't understand its true origins, and they do it innocently because it was done to them as a child by their parents. Now, while many Americans are so happy during this time, there's so many smiling children ripping open toys and everything, and it seems so innocent. Around the world, many people are struggling so hard during this time based on this tradition of ours in America. We don't understand the impact that we play on the world. We don't understand the fact that for every child ripping open a gift saying that they having a good Christmas, and we putting our focus on making sure every child gets a toy that they're going to play with for 1 or 2 days and throw it away, and it's all under the bed, outside, the dog eating it. They don't even care about it no more. We just collect a bunch of junk. You got your kid the PlayStation 1 last year. I'm going to get him the PlayStation 2 this year. I'm going to get him the PlayStation 50 49 years from today if they still doing Christmas. And it's a bunch of foolishness, y'all. It's consumerism to prove your love. For every child getting a gift, and for every child we trying to make sure have a Merry Christmas, there's 50 children out there who don't even know where they're gonna get clean water or get a meal from on Christmas night. And for any other night, if you want to keep it real. And while you over here talking about, oh, that's so sad, that child didn't get a toy for Christmas, I can show you millions of children right now who ain't gonna be drinking water. Some of them gonna be dying this Christmas from famine. While y'all over here talking about some Christmas gifts and ain't even educating your children on what the holiday mean and giving them its pagan roots. Your parents is foolish, going out here spending all your money, getting loans, putting pictures up on Facebook. Look at what I got my children for Christmas. I got them the joints and all of that. And don't even understand the pagan roots behind the holiday and the whole agenda behind it, like a fool.
got some soup and a blanket and stuff in there for you. Thank you.
So, a huge misconception by design has the vast majority of society believing Christmas is the common way to describe Christ's mass and is a remembrance of his birth. The date of December 25th is remembered as the birth of Jesus Christ, but the tree, Yule log, candles, and gifts do not immediately appear to have any connection to the Messiah because they don't. Now, the reason I'm going into this is because it's a Christian tradition, Christmas, and most Christians will fight you to uphold this tradition of Christmas. So I'm starting here. I'm going to the Bible and showing you where you're messing up already and that this holiday don't have anything to do with Jesus. I got to show y'all how all of this stuff comes from mythology. Jesus is just a mythological God. And when you talk about Santa Claus and you talk about Jesus and you talk about Mithra and you talk about Serapis and you talk about Nimrod, we're talking about syncretic gods. We're talking about deities that parallel each other from their birth date, from their stories, from their symbolism. Guys, it has to be a conspiracy. It can't be a coincidence. So just a mind boggler to lay on the table real quick for you Christians. These traditions that we practice, Christmas, existed long before Jesus or Yahweh existed, okay? So that show you that these traditions go to pagan roots that was being practiced in Europe. The tradition of Christmas and its practices were prevalent on the earth before the teachings of Jesus or Yahweh. So this predate your Messiah. Now, if you go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 10, verses 1 through 4, you will even read where Jeremiah warned about these practices. And it says, do not learn the ways of the nations or be terrified by signs in the heavens, though the nations are terrified by them. For the practices of the peoples are worthless. They cut a tree out of the forest, and craftsman shapes it with his chisel. For they adorn it with silver and gold. They fasten it with hammer and nails so it will not totter. People, I got to take a minute and dissect this scripture down to you so I can free your mind here today. Now, listen to what this saying. First of all, before you even understand this scripture, you got to understand the mindset of the people who created Christmas. See, winter solstice for the Europeans who created Christmas was a frightening time because during this time of year, they got less sunlight and they thought that the sun wasn't going to return. They thought that if they didn't sacrifice humans and practice certain blood sacrifices and do certain evil behavior to please these evil deities that they serve, they thought that the sun was not going to return. This was the idiotic mindset of the Europeans that created this tradition called Christmas. And I'm just giving you the truth today. These people during winter solstice time, the sun goes on the cross. This is astrology, people. But they gave you the S-O-N and put him on the cross. But really, Jesus, the S-O-N, is a personification of the S-U-N that goes on the cross. We know Jesus rose again in 3 days, the resurrection, but this happens every year. The sun goes on the cross and in 3 days it rises again. They believe that if they didn't do this wicked stuff and human sacrifices during this time, the sun will return and it was going to stay nighttime forever. They had no idea of how this system worked. So when you read this scripture and it say, do not learn the ways of the nations or be terrified by signs in the heavens. Let me read that again. This is Jeremiah, and he was telling them, don't be like these Europeans. Don't be terrified by signs in the heavens. It goes on to say, though the nations are terrified by them. These people were terrified by the winter solstice. It frightened them every year. And they would do all of these practices, and in their mind, they thought it was because of them that the sun was returning. But in reality, if they wouldn't have done none of these practices, the sun would have still returned. So People understand how deep this goes. When they found out how dumb they was, they still kept the traditions and the practices going, and we still doing them today because so many people got so many agendas tied up with them, and they done morphed into something that's a monster today. And I'm going to be breaking down that to you as we move on, but we got to get this foundation. So understand that, Christians, and that's Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 4. Now we're going to move on and explore some more of the traditions of Christmas. So the myriad of traditions associated with Christmas are steeped in occult and mystery origins. The most prolific symbol of this holiday is the Christmas tree. While some can agree to its phallic nature, the tree actually symbolizes the resurrection of Nimrod and has always been celebrated during the winter solstice, thousands of years before the Messiah. Now, many people say that the tree is symbolic of the resurrection of Nimrod. And even though that's true, it's so many other things that it's symbolic of. And you're going to understand how this ties into the Sumerian cosmology. When you see the tree of life in Sumerian cosmology, this became the concept of the Christmas tree that we use today. And putting the gifts under the tree actually comes from a sacred mushroom called the Amanita muscaria that was revered by the ancestors. I'm going to talk about that later in this video. I want to stay on subject. We're going to get real deep here, people. Stay with me. I want to give you some facts and history here. If you understand Sumerian cosmology, you will understand that they were flat earthers. Now, I'm not going to go into that in this video. You can check out previous videos to understand that. You got to understand that the earth is flat, people, and that the globe is a lie. We've been lied to. You won't understand this stuff in detail. You only get half truths. Brother Sanchez trying to give you 100%, all right? So back to the facts here. Understand Sumerian cosmology. You see the tree of life there. You understand that at the top of the tree of life is what's called a sacred bird, what's called the cosmic mother. So many names in so many different cultures throughout so many different times. And that's where the deity sat in the ancient cosmology. Again, the cosmology in today's world have achieved something that no ancient cosmology had yet achieved, though many patriarchal cultures were trying, and that is the complete doing away with a deity in our cosmology. I go into that in previous videos, but when you understand Sumerian cosmology, you can see how this tree of life, and when we put the star on top of our Christmas tree, you will see how that's symbolic to the North Star Polaris. Now, the North Pole is very symbolic with Santa Claus, but really what's at the North Pole is magnetic energy that we talk about in previous videos. We understand that the North Star is stationary. The star that you put on top of your Christmas tree is symbolic to that North Star. And if you're looking at the picture in front of you now, this predates Jesus and any Christian Messiah. And we can see the tree here with the star on top the same way we do with our Christmas trees. The Sumerian cosmos is the same way, as well as the Mayan cosmos and everyone else. You will see the tree is just the earth cosmos, and that eye at the top of the pyramid is the same concept when you look at your dollar. It's the same concept. That was the capstone, and that was the place where the throne of the Most High sat, the cosmic mother in prehistoric time, which became all of these male patriarch deities in today's New World Order time. So we got to go back through these historic times and understand how these traditions go against truth. We can't have them both. Either we can have truth or tradition. So back to the truth. When you understand here what I'm showing you here in Samaria, this predates your little Christmas trees. I'm showing you where the truth is at, you Christians. I just read to you in Jeremiah that it's a bunch of baloney, that these folks was idiots. They thought the sun wasn't going to return, and they turned the S-U-N to the S-O-N. You will understand that the word Christmas first showed up in history after the Council of Nicaea during Constantine and Justinian time. And I'm about to get into that in a minute so you can see how all of this tied in. If you go back and look at my Council of Nicaea video, you can see how Jesus was actually created from Serapis in 325 AD by edict of the Emperor Constantine. And so many other things was happening on the earth during this time where they was persecuting the people and establishing these new deities that are ruling the world today. You will understand that Christmas was a product of those councils during the 325, 324, 326 era during this time. See, you got to understand that Christmas isn't on everyone's calendar, people. We got the Gregorian calendar under Pope Gregory, all right? And we really on a false time system here, and we revere evil festivities and pagan practices, and we don't even know it. They are making you participate in the most detrimental practices, and they make them appear so innocent, y'all. And I'm just trying to free your mind. You don't see how this stuff keeps humanity in a warp, and I'm trying to show you here today. Just understand that the Christmas tree is actual cosmology as well, with the North Star at the top stationary, that's Polaris. The gifts under the tree is the Amanita muscaria. The tree is always going to be a pine tree because the Amanita muscaria mushroom grows under the pine trees. You putting them gifts under that tree is symbolic of that mushroom. The mushroom is red and white, just like the Christmas colors, what Santa wear. The hat being a triangle is the same Pope hat, Egyptian hat that the real St. Nicholas wore. People, I'm trying to free your mind, okay? Now, I'm going to get deep into this stuff in this video. I'm kind of skipping in the future. I'm going to walk us through it. So this Christmas tree symbolizes Nimrod resurrection to the Sumerians at this time, and it symbolizes Jesus' rebirth and resurrection to the Christians. But what I'm telling you guys is don't get too caught up into arguing on who resurrection it really is, because it's all of these people's resurrection at different time. So if you were a person that partake in Christmas today, chances are you would have been a person partaking in Saturnalia during that time, because it's the same practices, okay? It's the same deities. Nimrod is Jesus. All of these people are deified. And St. Nicholas was a real bishop, of course, but he was deified and became St. Nick, Santa Claus, just as well as all of these other evil bishops and evil men in power. So when we talk mythology, the history is tied up in it, like I always teach y'all, and I'm going to show you how that works. So understand that Christmas is nothing but Saturnalia. What you call Christmas would have been called Saturnalia. And all of this stuff is ancient Roman pagan practices. And the Romans utilized many practices during Saturnalia, including mistletoe, which men were given free reign to any woman who crossed under where they hung. So the whole thing about kissing under the mistletoe, you got to understand, y'all, this go back to pagan roots. Now, what are we talking about when we talk pagan? What are the first two words of it? P-A, the first two words of patriarchy. This stuff where women are persecuted in these traditions and rituals. And we see homosexuality involved, where you got this man and other men sitting on his lap and men worshiping men. But to make a long story short, if you go back and watch my video about Pan, I go into the whole desecration of the woman and the divine feminine, and how in Europe it was a law for where any man can have free reign over any woman during this time. And women, if any man looked at you and wanted you, he wouldn't go to jail with it. And if you look at the law today, the law is very lenient toward pedophiles and people who women get out of jail in like 4 years, y'all. These guys and pals, I said 4 years, they don't even do that. Most of them just get papers. And not only that, they got whole communities where they give these guys trailer parks and stuff to protect them. It's guys in jail who really trying to better themselves, get out of jail, can barely make it. They need the protection and all the resources. It's just a slap on the wrist, man. And that's because the people in power, they pals and women abusers. It's really a shame where you got a system where a crime is committed and there's a victim and a guy get a slap on the wrist, don't even set foot in the jail, and you got guys who commit crimes where there is no victim. They get caught with plants and stuff like that and get years in jail. So it's the same thing, like it's the same practices. We in this same society. The whole kissing under the mistletoe seem innocent today, but it keeps this same tradition going, keeping humanity in a warp. You notice evil prevail on the earth, y'all, and we ain't changing nothing. We gotta break tradition, but these traditions, they tie up into your emotions. You think that you failing your grandmother, you failing your children if you don't participate, and it's how they get you. So understand that during Saturnalia practices where Christmas originated from, they would give men mistletoes, and where any man hung his mistletoe, if a woman crossed under there, he raped the woman. So this is where these traditions come from. And the burning of a Yule log paid homage to the sun god. And we know that all patriarchal societies are sun worshipers, and there's no balance, and there's desecration of the moon, which holds the secrets. And I get into that in previous videos. So December 25th is winter solstice and symbolizes death due to the sun being visible for the least amount of time on this day. Keep in mind, this is only true when we're dealing with the people who misunderstood the workings of the celestial bodies. So yes, they viewed this as death. Those people whose misunderstanding had them in fear. Remember, people fear what they don't understand. The beginning of winter, which is death, and end of life, which is spring, was kept in ancient times to ensure the proper times to plant crops and track the seasons. But we don't really consider this time ancient because it's not prehistoric. If you ask me, during this time, the people were off track when they started coming with all of these crazy practices, because the origin of these traditions is all rooted in fear and misunderstanding of nature. So in ancient Sumer, this day was representative of the birth of Tammuz / Nimrod, or Baal, the sun god. This date was used in Rome initially to represent the holiday of Saturnalia, which was a festival that lasted for a week and where law and order was suspended and chaos was celebrated in the period of December 17th to 25th. Did you hear what Brother Sanchez just said to you? So what I just read to you is basically the whole origins of the whole Purge movie. If you ever saw the movie Purge, law is suspended for a certain time of the year. Again, nothing new is under the sun. All of these movies that y'all like have some type of historic truth to it. This is real stuff, y'all. Think about that. The movie Purge was a reality for these people during this time. Again, the society we live in today is Roman, y'all. Egyptian / Greco-Roman, to be accurate. It's chaotic, it's evil. And it come from people who had vicious, bloody sports where you think football is violent today, man. They had sports where they fought to the death. People ate popcorn and watched people being crucified and tortured. This was the mindset of their society. And this is going to be the mindset of the world if y'all don't listen to what I'm saying and get out of tradition and get us back to truth. Because as I speak, they making laws right now to make pedophilia, bestiality, and all of that stuff okay. It ain't going to be against the law. So like I'm telling you, this stuff that I'm reading to you that make you say, man, them people back in ancient Rome was so stupid. It's the same people ruling the world today. And if they could, they would have it the same way. And each year they passing laws to make it more and more chaotic, more evil, to get us back closer to this chaotic time. And you can see that they are succeeding as the years go by and we look at these generations. So this whole Purge movie was true back then, okay? Law and order was suspended and chaos was celebrated in Rome during the holiday of Saturnalia. and this was from December 17th to the 25th. Law and order was suspended and chaos was celebrated. The courts were closed, and the Roman law decreed that no one would or could be punished for infractions of the law, even destruction of property or the injuring of individuals during the celebration. Ain't that something, people? At the onset of this festival, the Roman authorities would choose someone whom would be considered an enemy of the Roman people, and one from each Roman community would put forth a victim what they would force to partake in any physical punishments they indulged themselves with during the week. Doesn't this sound identical to the movie Purge? It goes on to say, once concluded on December 25th, the Roman authorities would authorize the death of this man or woman, believing they were destroying evil. Go and watch the movie Purge. Go watch all of the Purge movies, starting from number 1, and watch it to the end, and think about what I just read to you. When you look at the Purge movie, you're looking at the origins of Christmas. Christmas was a very chaotic time in its origins, in its pagan roots. It was called Saturnalia, and I just read to you that what happened during this time was identical to the movie Purge, y'all. This is horrific. And a mild form of it can be seen today, because during this time, if you look at the statistics, the most death happened during this time, the most sewers happening during this time, the most robbery happened during this time, the most families break up, divorce during this time. Why? Because during this time, everybody feel pressured to prove something with this tradition. Everybody got to bring something to the table and prove themselves by partaking in this celebration, and it's a lot of pressure on society. So it's chaotic even in a mild form when you compare it to its pagan roots. This is very deep stuff I'm giving you here today. Hey, what's up, guys? Real quick, just something I wanted to plug in here real quick. Black Friday is very important when we leading up to Christmas. And something I wanted to point out about Black Friday that have some historic connection to black people and things they did around the Thanksgiving time when they auctioned off the slaves. But the current meaning, the real meaning why Black Friday is important in our world today is strictly for economic reasons, and I'm gonna break it down to you real simple here. All year long, corporations run in the red, mean they run in the negative. Black Friday is when they change their prices to the prices you would have normally got that product for anyway, and that's when they come out of the red and into the black. This is corporate terminology we using here when we talk Black Friday, when we talk red and black. The Moors go into a lot of this terminology real deep as well when you get on the status part. These businesses run in the red below profit, and they do that on purpose. See, what the corporations know is that it's a waiting game with them. They all work together. They keep their prices high all year long to maximize their profit. Smart consumers wait to the end of the year to do all of that shopping because of the reasons I'm telling you right now. You can get the same thing that you're buying at the beginning of the year for doggone near half the price, just because the business owners know that they only have to meet their quota for the end of the year. So they have prices jacked up all through the year. And Black Friday, everybody put the price to what it would have been normally anyway. And y'all tear the stores up. And it's a big game. Look at all the stuff, the madness that go on during Black Friday. So just remember that black mean profit, okay? And yes, it meant profit back in slavery days. They had the black gold, the slaves that they auctioned off during that time for real cheap prices. But today, those slaves are tearing the stores down, partaking in pagan traditions that keep them behind, perpetuating a bunch of foolishness. And you end up with videos on the internet like this one that you're about to see.
Excuse me.
How you doing, my friend? We got something for you.
Thank you.
I know. I tried to make $1 million. It's a friendly bird. They talk to them. They give you the magic too. The bird. I wish I was out there, strong man up somewhere on the mountain.
So the very first mention of a nativity feast appears in the Philocalian calendar, which is a Roman document from 354 CE, and it recognizes December 25th as the day of Isis, or Jesus' birth, during the 4th century CE in the era of Constantine I. Christianity superimposed the rituals of the Saturnalia festival over the new state-established religion of Christianity in an attempt to unify the pagan masses with those of the Messianic faith. If you understand what was going on during this time with the Constantine and Justinian during the Nicene Council and how the Nicene Creed came to be and why was its purpose even needed, when you understand the whole Catholic creed and how Jesus was created by Constantine, realize that Christmas also came out of this time. When you have invasions and mass battles and chaos on the land, there's mixtures among people and cultures. And the people's attempt to bring some kind of order out of that chaos so these rulers can establish their rule is to unify all of these pagan practices that they use to govern their sheeple with. So governments start working together against the masses in a way like I showed you with the three-headed dragon concept, where we know we're in a quote-unquote Christian country, but understand that's not the case. All Abrahamic religions are under one umbrella, and I just gave you that three-headed dragon. A lot of blending occurred to get the things we see today in our reality. When you say Christmas, the Christ Mass came to be based upon these emperors putting a new face on pagan practices to make those pagan practices more likable to conquered people. So, for example, when they conquered the Egyptians, there were certain gods that the Egyptians had that were blended with the Christian deity, that were blended with the European deities at that time. And as a result, Christianity started to be birthed and the Christian deities came to be. You would see that Jesus is a Greco-Roman deity, or what they call an Egyptian Greco-Roman deity. And the Egyptian is there because Jesus had a lot of Egyptian influence when they created him. They took a lot of the parallels and storylines and symbolism from Egyptian deities to create Jesus. Research the Egyptian god Horus and you will understand his parallels to Jesus, as well as many, many others like Mithra and many others, what I will probably touch on somewhere in this video. These councils blended these deities to create most of the deities y'all enjoy today. Santa Claus is a deity. He's a blended deity. He's a mixture of Jesus, Saint Nicholas, Mithra, Odin, and many more. There's so much to know how these connections tie in together when we talk about Jesus, Santa Claus, the god Mithra, and how they tie into the reverence of the psilocybin mushroom, the Amanita muscaria. So the picture in front of you now just shows an old postcard, and you can see the little angel, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. What you can see is the Amanita muscaria mushroom that you see in the Mario video game. Please check out my Mario mushroom mythology video to understand all about the reverence of this mushroom and the ancients. But this shows you that when this postcard was made, you still can see the remnants showing you the parallels. Like I told you, the Europeans blended a lot of their practices with the cultures of other people's cultures. So we see parallels of everyone would see parallels in these traditions. This is why they're so popular. Everyone can relate to them in some kind of way. But here you can see the mushroom here, what I was describing to y'all in this Christmas postcard, because these mushrooms grow under the pine trees where we put our gifts on Christmas. but they don't tell us this stuff. So they actually hide a lot of knowledge behind these traditions. A lot of truth is hidden. The pine cone shaped pineal gland is an organ that produces the same DMT found in the pine tree fungus Amanita muscaria. And again, Amanita muscaria is the red and white magic mushroom that grows almost exclusively beneath pine trees. One of the active substance in the hallucinogenic mushroom is DMT. And DMT is naturally produced in the brain's pineal gland. Understand that the Christmas tree is a pine tree, and that the pine tree is called a pine tree because it shapes like the pineal gland, just like the pine cone, and that this mushroom grows under the pine tree, and that this mushroom produces DMT. This is as above, so below, y'all. Think about what I'm telling you. You have a pine-shaped organ in your brain that's producing DMT. And there's a pine-shaped pine tree found in nature that produces a hormone beneath it called Amanita muscaria. It's just a form of DMT. This Amanita muscaria produces DMT. What you get in the mushroom high and all of that, it's just the DMT. So the pine tree produces DMT and your pineal gland produces DMT. Let me also note something. When we talk Christianity, when we talk Greek and Roman, all of these cultures are inspired and influenced by the patriarchy of Egypt. It started with Egypt. The evil stuff started with Egypt, guys. Not just the good stuff, okay? And in order for us to see the truth, we got to accept that for you comedic folks. So green, red, and white as Christmas colors come from the evergreen tree and the red and white mushrooms underneath. The word Christmas originally comes from the Egyptian Christ, spelled K-R-S-T, meaning oiled or anointed one. And mess, M-E-S, the sacred cakes annually made and ingested by the Egyptians. So what I read to you about Christ meaning oiled one or anointed one, we see the O-I root in oil and anoint. This is all dealing with shining. You see the O-I in the word foil, and foil shines. When you oil someone up, they shine. You say that person is anointed. You say that person is a star. Why? Because stars shine. Where you call Jesus the Son of God, you say the sun is a star, right? So as above, so below, we're dealing with personification. Even when you go in any Italian restaurant, you will see on the table virgin oil. And what do you do with that oil? You oil up the bread because the bread is symbolic to the flesh of Christ, who is the anointed one who they put the oil on. So when you go in the restaurant and put your virgin oil on your bread and you eat it, you're partaking in the ritual right there. And this is very prevalent in Italian restaurants because we're talking Rome. We're talking the pizza culture. Come on now. Little Caesars is a pizza company, right? We know that America is a pizza nation, one of our favorite dishes, because, again, you are still in Rome. That's all I'm trying to get you guys to see. When you look at the architecture of the White House and like the Lincoln Memorial, you're looking at ancient Roman architecture, and they get it from Egypt, guys, okay? This style of architecture can be seen in its massive original prototype form in Egypt. When you get to Rome, you see copies of this architecture in many scale form, whereas in Egypt, giant columns. So this new world order started in Egypt. We like to go back to Egypt and glorify everything good, but we got to accept the bad in order to get the truth. So in moving on and explaining the origin of this Eucharist was originally made from Amanita muscaria, or was the mushroom itself. The tradition existed all over the ancient world, but most of the iconography/symbology recognized today comes from pre-Christian Northern Europe. So when we say ancient world, we're not talking prehistoric. Prehistoric predates what they call ancient. Keep that in mind when you're dealing with historical references. There's a history that predates history, and it's called her story or prehistory. Just keep that in mind. So understand that there are truths and deception in all traditions. The purpose of us with these traditions today should be investigating the traditions to get the truth out of them. But we're stuck in this warp, and the traditions keep the matrix going. And although most people see Christmas as a Christian holiday, most of the symbols and icons we associate with Christmas celebrations are actually derived from the shamanistic traditions of the tribal peoples of pre-Christian Northern Europe. The sacred mushroom of these people was the red and white Amanita muscaria mushroom. These peoples lived in dwellings made of birch and reindeer hide called yurts, somewhat similar to a teepee. What Tesla was on to, this whole mushroom shape, goes back to these mushroom cultures. Even the toadstool that you see in Mario and all of the mushroom reverence in the video game. So check out my Mario video, check out my Nikola Tesla video, and do your research on Christmas and its pagan roots, Saturnalia. So after gathering mushrooms from under the sacred trees where they appeared, the shamans would fear their sacks and return home. These were gifts to the shamans, these mushrooms. So when they go up under the pine tree and pick these mushrooms and fill that sack up, they're getting their gifts. Just like today, we put the gifts there instead because they keep us from Mother Nature and the mushrooms and all of these plants and stuff. They want to make them illegal and all of that to keep us from exploring the mysteries of nature. But there's a lot to this earth and to this reality that's been hidden behind tradition. So after the shamans would fill their sacks and return home with these mushrooms, remember, the entrance to their homes was the chimney. So this how Santa Claus, the whole stories of Santa Claus coming down the chimney with the sack full of the gifts, is really these shamans built their houses with the same entrance. How they entered their houses is how they let the smoke vent out. So you can see how this whole Santa Claus coming down a chimney with the bag of gifts started from truth and became a stupid tradition. So I'm giving you the truth as opposed to the tradition. So the shamans really did this, okay? And they would climb down the chimney entrance to their houses, and they would share out the mushroom gifts with those in the house. These shamans also dress like the Amanita muscaria mushroom, as you can see in the picture in front of you. This shaman woman dressed like the mushroom, and this how Santa became to be with the red and white. Now I'm giving you the truth, people. All you got to do is accept it. Why would you want the tradition over the truth? Oh, I get it. The truth hurt. And the tradition feels so good. All of the lights and the gifts that's raping the earth and the resources, and the sweatshops overseas got to work triple time during this time to meet America's greed need to feed our evil traditions and practices of consumerism. It all boiled down to you spending your money like a fool.
So I'm just really laying here, taking some time to look at these pre-Christmas statuses and pictures of Christmas trees and everybody getting these things for children. And I'm actually really disgusted. I'm really disgusted because I want to know when it became culturally accepted to turn children into consumers. And when it became socially and culturally accepted to allow your hard work as a parent and an individual to go unnoticed by children. What I'm also trying to figure out is, how is it that we support this system when it leaves so many people out? What do we tell children that don't get anything at all for Christmas? What do we tell children that are just hoping for a new pair of shoes, and we have a society that basically tells you you need to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars for your children to be happy? So what do we tell kids that are poor? What do we tell the world of children about Santa Claus that can't afford the idea of Santa? Like, when are we really gonna realize that this Christmas shit is harmful to more than our immediate reality and self? You got kids comparing other kids' Christmas gifts, and the kid down the street wants to know why Santa Claus maybe liked him more than somebody else, why he didn't get clothes, why he couldn't get this, why he couldn't get that. I'm really not sure why we're comfortable with this, why it doesn't make more people sick. The idea of it literally makes me sick. While you bust your ass to give your children things that they're gonna play with for all of 5 minutes and throw it on the ground. You spent all that money on a Christmas that they're going to forget, all the while sending them unhealthy messages about consumerism. That it's okay, that you have to go out of your way every single year to buy all this unnecessary shit for one day. And we are okay with this. Every year everybody's always like, why don't you just let people live, enjoy their holiday? And I do every single year. Every single year for centuries that niggas have been celebrating Santa Claus. People let people live. But when are we gonna break cycles that don't make any sense? Traditions are traditions, but somebody's got to be smart enough to reanalyze the tradition and say, hey, is this working for my community? That amount of money that you spend on toys, did you feed people? Did you put clothes on somebody else's back? It don't make no sense. So I just want to know, does Santa visit the ghetto? Does Santa give kids to the poor kid? Does Santa give toys to the poor? Why are we allowing the cycle of broken children over things? That said, we are really out here causing children to have inadequacy issues early, 5 years old, comparing themselves to somebody else that has something that they don't. That's not what you're supposed to be thinking about as a child. And we as adults have a lot more sense. We're in our right mind. We're supposed to lead the way for them. They're just following us. So why are we still doing this? This is crazy. Does Santa give gifts to the poor kids? Does Santa visit the ghetto? I want to know how those kids feel waking up Christmas morning, hearing this bullshit ass lie about Santa Claus every single year, wondering why they don't come to their neck of the woods. It's unfair. It's super unfair. It's socially unfair. The psychological effects are unfair. The things that people do every single year to make this idea of Christmas is unfair. So enjoy your holiday, but do know that I think this shit is excessive, stupid, inconsiderate, and hurtful to people that cannot afford to believe in a lie.
So understand that the way Santa dressed is like an ancient shaman mushroom gatherer. When it was time to go out and harvest the magical mushrooms, the ancient shamans would dress just like Santa, wearing red and white fur trim coats and long black boots. To this day, Siberian shamans dress in ceremonial red and white fur trim jackets to gather the magic mushrooms. After the shaman would go out and collect all of the mushrooms, he would go from house to house sharing these mushrooms with the rest of the villagers. If you look at my prehistoric videos, I tell y'all how we was living this way in prehistoric time, where we gathered stuff from the earth and we shared among the villagers before we even got to meat eating. So check out her story to his story. That's another video that's going to blow your mind and reveal the truth to you so you can understand how the world came to be consumed with tradition as opposed to truth that I'm giving you here. So these shamans went from house to house with their sacks of mushrooms that they got from under the pine tree. And when they did it, they had to go where? Down the chimney. This is your Santa Claus concept, all right? So I think we get it here, how this tie into the ancient shamanic practices. And you can read on. I got the link in the description section. I really encourage y'all to do so, because what you got to realize is that Santa is really Satan. But don't get so caught up in the spookism of this invisible dragon with a pitchfork, because that guy don't exist. Satan is just another mythological deity, okay? You will read about these reindeers in mythology connected to the world tree. And this goes back to the tree of life in ancient cosmology, or your Christmas tree is a representative of this. In an interesting play on words, another name for a large capped mushroom is a toadstool. So if Santa is a mushroom and a mushroom is a stool, when children sit on Santa's leg, they are sitting on a toadstool. Santa's famous magical journey, where his sleigh takes him around the whole planet in a single night, is developed from the heavenly chariot used by the gods from whom Santa and other shamanic figures are descended. The chariot of Odin, Thor, and even the Egyptian god Osiris is now known as the Big Dipper, which circles around the North Star in a 24-hour period. In order for that to happen, the North Star has to be stationary. So you got to understand ancient flat earth cosmology to understand these mythologies associated with your bogus traditions to get the truth out. And moving on, in different versions of the ancient story, the chariot was pulled by reindeer or horses. And again, we see Santa with these parallels. The word Santa is Satan, but Satan is just a desecration of the mother goddess. People, they give you this Jesus guy as your hero. When you learn about him, he was really a personification of real evil men blended all together, personified under one deity that y'all worshiping today. Why is his birthday tied up into Santa Claus and Christmas? Why isn't he coming out on this day? Think about that. Santa Claus is not even mentioned in the Bible. So I'm showing you how they tied all of these pagan practices together into one practice called Christmas today, so they can have their cake and eat it too. We can have Santa, which is Odin, and you still got your Jesus, which is Serapis, and they can have all of these ancient pagan deities still living on today in our time, y'all. And we still got a purge type society where it's chaos and nobody can see how we still in this Greco-Roman Egyptian period, and we still stuck in history. So probably the first Santa was Osiris in ancient Egypt, who rode his flying chariot to and from the North Pole. All of these deities are connected with the North Pole. You never hear anything about the South Pole when we talk about ancient mythology, which is tied into ancient cosmology. Why don't we hear about the South Pole? Because it doesn't exist, and the ancients knew that. There is no South Pole, there's a South Ring. I won't get into that in this video. Check out my previous videos on ancient cosmology. So Osiris was born on December 25th. Keep that in mind, people. Again, all of this paganism started in Egypt. The Greeks and Romans learned it from the Egyptians, y'all. It even tell you in the Bible that Moses, the father of Christianity, learned everything he knew from the Egyptians. All right? So there will be no Christianity without no Egypt. Please keep that in mind, you comedic folks. I'm going to leave you with a little brief caption slide to go deeper into Santa's connection with Christmas and the mushroom practices. Pay attention to the slides, and I will return with more powerful revelations. So check this out. This is the billboard that they put the campaigns on for the lawyers on each side. And the guy just made it into a little shelter.
God bless you guys.
Thank
Hey
you.
man, yeah, take care, man.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I'm glad we can help you, bro.
Yes, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
It seems that Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny have both been uprooted from their many original positions. They begin as mythological mushroom heroes understood in a spiritual context by both children and adults. Now their literal meaning has been suppressed and a fake image has been corporatized by Coke Cadbury and others. It was not meant for children to discover as they are coming of age that parents, family, and friends have lied to them about Santa and the Easter Bunny. It was meant for them to discover deeper meanings behind the mythologies, such as the ancient astrotheological understanding of the heavens, the knowledge of the zodiacal precession, and seasonal cycles like solstices and equinoxes. The whole complexity of the modern Christmas mythos is an unexplainable mess without the magic mushroom. The story is completely unintelligible. Some psychologists have discussed the cognitive dissonance which occurs when children are encouraged to believe in the literal existence of Santa Claus, only to have their parents' lie revealed when they are older. By so deceiving our children, we rob them of a richer heritage. Many people in the modern world agree that Christmas is far too commercial, claiming that this ritual of giving is actually a celebration of materialism and greed. And I do agree on that. If it's really some guy named Jesus' birthday, why does everyone else get gifts anyway? Yet the true spirit of this winter festival lies not in the exchange of plastic toys, but in celebrating a gift from the earth. This is the true meaning that it meant to those shamans, okay? The fruiting top of a magical mushroom and the revelatory experiences it can provide. They call this a trip. In a lot of old cultures, you will see them using mushrooms in their spiritual practices, and I don't hack that, okay? So these magic mushrooms was said to reveal everything about a person. When you go to these old villages like in the Amazon where these shamans are and they practicing this stuff, these people got a different connection than modern westernized people who shun and look down on them for their practices. When we the ones with the pagan dumb practices, and I'm showing you that here. It's stolen from the truth which these shamans is practicing, okay? The whole thing about Santa knowing if you good or bad come from the mushroom trip that Santa represents. The red and white mushrooms that representative of Santa, they know if you good or bad. These things give a revelatory experience. So when you read on, you will see how they took Santa and gave him all of the attributes that this sacred plant really got. And they deified this man, but really what they telling you Santa do, this mushroom do. And it's really deep when you start researching this stuff. So it's so much to learn, and I'm just scratching the surface, yo. It's just too much for one video. I just want to give y'all the foundation. Now, the Norse god Odin, a lot of people refer to him in a feminine way, and you're not wrong when you do that because Odin is another form of the mother goddess. And you notice Odin is nothing but Thor, and they both have the hammer. We see the judge with the hammer in the court today, and it's used to bang to keep order. You notice that the hammer shaped just like the deity Ma'at, which is the capital T or the balance and scales, and that it's shaped just like the mushroom or an umbrella. And all of this parallels because it's representatives of the same thing. The mushroom shaped just like our cosmos. There's even a lot of what they call mushroom cultures who had mushroom mythologies and mushroom deities and mushroom cosmologies and a lot of mushroom reverence in their culture based upon this psilocybin and its revelatory effects. A lot of musicians talk about this plant. I don't make anything taboo or shun anything. especially if it's a plant, because there's a lot to this earth that's been hidden behind tradition. But just to drop one more little jewel on you about the psilocybin mushroom, what they call the magic mushroom, this symbolism is deep in the Mario game, which was very famous. And you notice it made him grow and gave him powers. But what's also deep about it is that the whole music genre that's called psychedelic music is based around a psilocybin mushroom, because supposedly a lot of these musicians were having this revelatory experience and having these trips to create some of these famous hits that y'all still love today. But see, y'all are taboo this stuff, and a lot of famous people tap into the magic and secrets of the earth. So psychedelic music is a product of the psilocybin mushroom, and you can see the wordplay relations there. So I just wanted to show you about Odin and how he's just another form of truth, or the mother goddess. Odin is just another form of Thor and Ma'at. It's the same deity that was plagiarized and corrupted. And Odin actually became Santa. So most people would say that Santa Claus is descended from the actual bishop, Saint Nicholas, a Christian bishop who helped people and distributed gifts to the poor. They would be only partially right. Most of our images of Santa Claus and what he does on Christmas Eve are taken from pagan legend. Odin was the chief Norse god. He usually appeared as a bearded old man wearing a wide-brimmed hat and fur-trimmed cloak. Odin had only one eye, as he had sacrificed one eye to gain wisdom and knowledge. From his throne in the wintry far north, he could see everything that happened in the world. He also knew who was righteous and good and guided their souls into Valhalla, or heaven. Odin was a shapeshifter and could enter homes at will. Now, this was all in the mythology. They said that Odin had the ability to enter your home, sort of like Nightcrawler. So this is how Santa sneaking in the house undetected came into being. Also, what I want to point out to all of you Islamic or Muslim people, something that you're not going to like. Allah is nothing but a form of Odin, or another form of Santa. When you look at the depictions of Allah, he's a bearded deity, just like Odin and Santa. And what I want to point out is, you look at the name of heaven in Norse mythology, where the god Odin rules, it's Valhalla. And if you look at the word Valhalla, you can actually see Allah at the end of Valhalla. So the heaven for the god Odin, which is an offshoot of Allah, is Valhalla. Just trying to free our minds and give us the truth as opposed to the tradition. The Scandinavians believed that at Solstice, Odin would ride through the sky on his 8-legged horse, Sleipnir. Remember that Santa is just a descendant of this Nordic god, Odin. Remember that all of these sun gods ride in a chariot, but what I really want to point out to you is some important etymology. Odin's horse was named Sleipnir, and the root word of Sleipnir is slay. Remember, Santa is a descendant of Odin, and Odin's horse Sleipnir became Santa's sleigh. And remember that when we talk about the sleigh, there's also something called a sleigh bell, and a bell is very important around this time. This is all deep stuff that I want y'all to tie together. The actual word we use in English called sleigh is a descendant of this Nordic mythological story of Odin's horse Sleipnir. Okay, and it became Santa's sleigh, and you can see the reindeers that drag this sleigh, because these reindeers are symbolic to the horns of the moon goddesses who had the elk horns or the deer horns. They even got secret societies all around these cities, and you can see they lodges called elk lodges. Why are certain animals revered? And you see that these animals are the main ones tortured in certain societies, like the cow, right? And we say stuff like holy cow, and that's bull crap. Why the bull? It's so much stuff that we have to learn, and so many truths can be revealed just by the study of the very language we speak. Just how they desecrated the mother, Eve became evil when it's really even and balanced. Okay, everything associated with Mother Nature became flipped in this matrix that we in. I don't want to confuse you. So when I say Santa became Satan, remember Satan is nothing but the mother desecrated. They got you to hate the one that you should be embracing. Psychological warfare. And what I'm showing you here is how you can see these remnants with the reindeers and the sleigh. And even in the words we use today, when we say the sleigh, goes back to this ancient Nordic culture. Odin, Thor, and all of these gods, Zeus, they got a hammer, and that's like the balances scales. Again, a capital T symbolized truth, order, balance. This goes back to the mother goddess. And I'm pointing this out to show that when you say the sleigh, there's also something called a sleigh bell. And during this time, we notice we get a lot of bells and jingle bell, jingle bell. Well, this goes back to the mother goddess, which was the cow goddess. That first bell was the cowbell. And we use this in hip hop on almost every beat. Remember, Hathor, the cow goddess, was over music. Even when you outline a cowbell, you get the Tibetan wheel or the X with the line, goddess Kali. So the cowbell existed before the sleigh bell, and you see the reindeers with the bells on. And remember, I told you the reindeer goes back to the horns of the mother goddess and the moon goddesses. So keep that in mind. The sleigh bell is the cowbell. The Hershey's Kisses ringing on a commercial. Remember, it all shaped like the cowbell. Think about what it's called. It's called a bell, and it's spelled B-E-L-L. The first telephone, they said it was designed by Alexander Graham Bell, and they're dealing with subconscious relations here. Look at the way the telephone shaped just like a bell and it rings. Remember earlier in this video, I told y'all that all of these deities, Odin and Santa Claus, Jesus and Mithra, remember I told you that all of these guys are also synonymous with the god Baal or Baal. The name Baal and Baal are the same. So it's all relating, just like I explained to you, because these are syncretic deities and pagan traditions that y'all still are under. And I'm just trying to get us back to Mother Nature, because the mother goddess have been desecrated behind all of these patriarchal deities and traditions. The bell is symbolic because when it rings, that symbolizes the mother. That's liberty. Remember the Liberty Bell. And that'll help you remember. Remember, liberty is associated with a bell. And what is liberty? Liberty is justice, ma'at, balance. Okay, so remember and tie all of this stuff into my previous videos, okay? Because the bell makes music. And again, Hathor, the cow goddess, was over music. And she represented balance like all of the mother goddess. So the Liberty Bell bringing the liberty music and the balance. We see this during Christmas time. The people who created these dumb stories didn't have balance because they was in fear of nature. So the Scandinavians had this in their mythologies about Odin, how he rode through the sky on his horse Sleipnir. That became the word we use for sleigh today. The Scandinavians also had many other beliefs with this story. And some of the Scandinavian traditions that came as a result of their mythology were things like children would leave their boots by the chimney with some grain, sugar, or carrots in or next to them for Sleipnir to eat. Odin would carry a sack of sweet bread and coins, come down the chimney into the home, and leave money and food for those who had been good. Odin always carried his magical spear, which never missed its target. He would beat any child who had been bad. Does this sound familiar? Odin for these children during this time in Norse culture is Santa for our children today. And for adults, it's just Jesus. He know when you're good. He know when you're bad, when you sleep or when you're awake. He got hell for your bad adults and heaven for your good ones, okay? And what does he got to promise you in heaven that you can't get on earth, all right? Streets of gold and mansions and all that old mundane crap. That would be Christmas every day for you adults. So It's all stuff to rule your mind with these mythologies and keep the truth hidden. The same deities with the same parallels. We fast forward to 270 CE. Nicholas of Patara was born in present-day Turkey, the son of wealthy Greek Christian merchants. Nicholas was ordained while still in his early teens, and for the next decade or so, a number of Roman emperors persecuted the Christian church to various degrees, although there were also periods of toleration. Sometime between 307 and 324 CE, Nicholas was made Bishop of Myra. He was a widely popular bishop. He gave away his inheritance to the poor, fasted on Wednesdays and Fridays, destroyed several pagan temples, and promoted the selling and merchant classes. Nicholas was present at the Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, where the Nicene Creed was created and where Jesus was created, guys. Now are you starting to see the connections here? Nicholas was determined to stamp out Arianism. Who is Arius, guys? There was a black man from Libya going around during these times, 325, 324 CE, and he was saying, listen, y'all, don't fall for the foolishness. At these councils, they creating these new gods. They trying to corrupt these deities to control the people. They taking all of these deities and they creating a creed, which became the creed that all the Catholics say in the church, which is a creed that decree that Jesus was made of God and came through the flesh and he was not made of man. Think about it, people. All of you under the sound of my voice, what if that was written on your birth certificate? You will say that's foolish. Why would they have to decree to the world that this baby that just came out of its mother's womb, right, is made of his mom and daddy and it's come of the flesh and it ain't made of man, meaning it ain't no lie made up of no fabrication. You can trace this baby's lineage and bloodline. Why can't we do that for Jesus? And the only thing we got for Jesus is a creed that came out of Nicaea, where they declared that basically this is law. Anybody who say Jesus didn't come of the flesh, we gonna crucify him. And this how they got rid of the truth and got Jesus so popular today as the number one deity. Everybody believe he was really virgin born. Come on, people. You really believe that Joseph, if your wife came to you today and said, listen, baby, I'm pregnant and the Lord got me pregnant, you would divorce her. But yet we take these bogus, dumb stories in these religions that this boy was virgin born. Now that is some truth to that, because that goes into how men were created as immaculate conceptions. I'm not going to get into that in this video. I'm trying to free your mind with the tradition and the deception here. Christians, Muslims, Christmas lovers. Check this out. Jesus is a white God, all right, that was born in the Middle East with a Mexican name. I'm going to say that again. If you find somebody like this walking around, you let me know. A white man with a Mexican name, born in the Middle East. That's your God. It makes no sense. It's a bunch of foolishness. I'm trying to free your mind and give you the truth as opposed to the tradition. They had to decree that Jesus was born of the flesh because we can't prove it. Where his bloodline at? They said a man was a carpenter. Where in his carpentry work at? I want to see it. That'll be some good carpentry, right? Wouldn't it be good if you can walk up in the museum and the man say, look here, brother Sanchez, you see them cabinets over there? Jesus made them cabinets like a fool. What kind of God that can walk on water gonna have a profession of carpentry? And you can't find none of his work. His work centered around tearing his own trees down, forming it into cabinets, but he able to walk on water. He got to get the wood from the tree and carve it up now, but he able to turn water to wine. He just can't make the cabinets appear. Like a fool. Don't none of the stuff make sense. I'm trying to free your mind. It takes a lot out of me dealing with the stupidity of these traditions, and people will fight you to keep them going. And I'm just trying to give you the truth. I know it. My mama gave me Christmas. You think you're taking some away from these kids, but you'd rather give them the truth that'll set them free as opposed to a dumb tradition that you don't even understand the roots and its pagan roots and how it even come to be, but you just want a gift and you don't care how detrimental it is to the earth and to the people. Selfishness. Ignorance is bliss, like a fool. So go look at my Council of Nicaea video so you can understand how they stopped this brother named Arius who went around telling them don't believe these deceivers. Don't y'all start worshiping these pagan dumb gods that y'all worshiping today. Bishop Nicholas is who you're worshiping when you're talking about Saint Nick, right? He a saint, right? Christians is saints, right? These weren't no likable people back in the day. They you, man, if you didn't believe what they believe. And look at how Christians treat you today when you don't believe what they believe. Bunch of divide and conquer. Your God against mine, and we dying over imaginary friends. Y'all still believing in Santa Claus, but you're calling them Jesus. You don't believe that a man can fly through the sky with reindeers, but you believe a man walked on water like a fool. You're still believing in dumb fairy tales like fools. So this Bishop Nicholas, who became Saint Nick in mythology today, was determined to stop Arius, and they did that. They stopped that brother. They silenced him. It says in history he was anathematized, meaning he was done away with for heresy. Anybody that was going against these bogus laws, see, this was a law. Jesus was a law. He wasn't a man, he was a law. If you didn't believe in this God, you died. There was never no Jesus on the cross. The only people that was on the cross was anybody who went against these bogus pagans. He's nothing but an offshoot of Serapis and Zeus. And I'm showing you here how it ties into the Christmas, while they said his birthday is December 25th because it ties into Nimrod and this Bishop Nicholas here, who was present during the Nicene Creed when they even created Jesus. All right. So Nicholas died in his sleep on December 6th in 345, 352 CE. And sailors from the town of Bari in Italy were in Myra, fearing that nearby warring armies would destroy the saints' relics. The sailors spirited them away. St. Nicholas' bones still reside in Bari. So saints were soldiers. That's why you get the song when the saints come marching in. Either you accept what they telling you to believe, or your butt was tortured and you was crucified, just like Christians do today. I'm trying to free your mind. This brother named Arius from Libya was crucified for Christian heresy. God the Son was created by God the Father and co-eternal with him. That was in the Nicene Creed. They had to decree this because people were saying, hey man, who is this new deity? They had to go around and force this stuff and write this in history. If you was around during this time, Jesus would have been forced upon you. Saturnalia became Christmas today. So because of these legends and how St. Nicholas stopped Arius from telling the people the truth, all of those evil men at Nicaea was successful with their creed and their domination over the masses. And now you got the Christ Mass or Christmas every year based on all of these historic events. Because of these legends, St. Nicholas has become the patron saint of sailors, seamen, merchants, children, prostitutes, prisoners, lawyers, and pharmacists. Just like today, all the wicked people in American society love Christmas. They let their children sit on St. Nicholas' lap. And this is probably the only time where 90% of American parents are unaware of this mild pedal and its tradition based upon this pope or this bishop who became the patron over children. And now we let these children sit in this man's lap. And we know the connection between the Pele and the Vatican. It all makes perfect sense, people. But you got to understand the hideous roots that became this quote unquote innocent tradition today, but it perpetuates the same ignorance and evil in our society. So Saint Nicholas became the most popular saint of the Middle Ages. The feast of Saint Nicholas was celebrated on December the 5th. So guys, these pagan traditions keep recreating themselves, and we stay in this warp, in this matrix, because we never want to accept truth. We love these traditions so much. So real quick, 8 ways magic mushrooms explain Santa's story. Remember that the Arctic shamans gave out mushrooms on the winter solstice. Mushrooms, like gifts, are found beneath the pine trees. Reindeer were shaman spirit animals. Also, just to plug in real quick before we move on, I recently did a video on urine therapy. The whole concept of urine therapy I went over in that video, so you can check that out. But one more thing I wanted to point out about it was another way they did the urine intake was a lot of the users would drink their own urine because it had traces of the high still in it. And that would be the last remnants of that high if they wanted to continue their trip. You also read that the shamans who did the shrooms would give the shrooms to their reindeer, and that reindeer would filter out all of the toxins, and they would drink the urine during certain times in that form. So the reindeer were shaman spirit animals as well. Shamans dress like Santa Claus, just like I showed you in the pictures. Number 5, mushrooms are prevalent in Christmas symbolism. So you will see the tree ornament shaped like the amanita mushrooms, and other depictions of the fungi are also prevalent in Christmas decorations. The elf hat and the little triangle shaped hat that we wear, what Santa wear, all goes back to the hat that the pharaohs wore, which all goes back to the bee goddess and the crown of the mother goddess. This hat that they wear is the same hat that the elf wear. If you look at these ancient shamans on the picture in front of you, you can see that this hat is something that they wore. And these people don't practice Christmas. Keep that in mind. They're not walking around talking about Santa Claus. I'm showing y'all how we're practicing dumb traditions that got real truth to a lot of people. And the truth that it has to those people is what connects them with nature into a more spiritual reality that we are not getting, because we caught up into the traditions and the consumerism that just keep these people rich and keep the truth hidden. So number 6, Rudolph's nose resembles a bright red mushroom. That's all they showing you with that. And you can read a lot of information up on that if you want. Number 7, Saint Nicholas visiting you down a chimney come from the shamans, because they enter their houses through the chimney, and that they collect those mushrooms from under the pine trees and put them in sacks, and they share them throughout the village, and they go in and out the chimney. All right, this is real stuff that became mythology. Remember, Santa is from the Arctic, and that the North Pole is the tree of life, okay? And that the star on top of that tree is the stationary Polaris, and that the North Pole is the only pole, and there's only a southern ring. So I didn't want to make this video this long. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So guys, let this be a video that you share every Christmas so we can combat the tradition with the truth. And remember about Black Friday and its true meaning. And keep this stuff in mind so we can break tradition and the truth can set us free. Before I get out of here, let me give a big shout out to my family of patrons. Wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without these guys. They make it possible. Shout out to my new patrons. Shout out to all of you under the sound of my voice. Remember, new uploads every Thursday. Peace and much love.
Soup and stuff for you.
Thank you so much.
You're
Merry
very
Christmas.
welcome.